art of wrestling with professional wrestler Colt Cabana.
And here we go. You're about to listen to The Art of Wrestling, a professional wrestling podcast. It's a life podcast. It's a personal journal. It's an entryway into the minds and souls, the hearts and lives of the people involved in the world of professional wrestling. I am your host. My name is Colt Cabana. Hey, I'm a podcaster. I'm an entertainer. I'm doing a lot. I'm doing a lot of things. Most importantly, though, I am a professional wrestler, and I am sitting here live in my studio apartment in Chicago, Illinois. Before we go any further, this is a fan-supported and listener-supported podcast supported by people just like you. We give it to you free of charge every single Thursday. SoundCloud, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts from. A couple great ways that you can support, rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Maybe tell a friend. Let them know something good's going on over here. Best way that you can support, though, ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com. T-shirts, buttons, pictures, posters, DVDs, digital downloads. Great ways to support independent wrestling and independent podcasting. ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com. And another fun week in the world of Colt Cabana's podcast. A lot of great guests coming up. I've got a couple saved for when my movie comes out, so we could do a little press with that. So a couple good ones in the bank, a couple good ones that are just coming out in general. Scott D'Amora's on this week. Scott's been a fixture in the world of professional wrestling and, probably independent wrestling for a long time now. The first half of his career, like the real shitty independents, and then the back half, like the better independents, like when he was running with TNA and doing stuff in Windsor that was getting big attention, always running big shows. He's always part of these big shows. He's got a big show coming up November 5th in Windsor, if you're in the area, Border City Wrestling. But I've known Scott for a long time. I don't think we talked about this. I remember talking to him about this that day, but I don't think it was in the podcast. First time I ever met him was at the Dan Curtis Memorial Show. Dan Curtis was a fixture in the Michigan wrestling scene for years. Dave Prazak was friends with Dan Curtis. And then later when me and Punk and Chuck Smooth all kind of broke in, we became friends with Prazak. And so the Dan Curtis Memorial Show is happening. So we all jumped in a car and headed north and then east towards Detroit. Adam Pearce was on the show with us too. And that was the first time I ever met Scott D'Amore. That had to have been the year 2000. So just about 16, probably over 16 years ago. First time I was ever on a show with him, he didn't remember, nor should he. He either wrestled Tommy Rogers or Marty Jannetty. I forget which one. I forgot who I wrestled. Usually I'm pretty good at remembering who I would wrestle on these shows, but it was a tag, Punk and I versus somebody, but I forget. I bet Prazak remembers. Scott's an interesting one. If you've ever heard the phrase, act like you know what you're doing, like if you want to sneak in somewhere, act like you've been there before, maybe a club, maybe the movies, maybe the Super Bowl, but act confident, act like you know what you're doing, act like you're a part of it. And like that sums up his career, I think, training people very early, booking people for WCW very early, and being like a boss in his mid-20s. Act like you've been there before, and Scott has. And now, years later, he's totally in that position. He's been around. He's been a part of a lot of really, really cool things. And this makes for a real fun talk. A lot of different aspects of the wrestling industry, which makes for one of those fun episodes of the podcast. So I don't know if you guys remember, a couple of weeks ago, I wrestled Jay Lethal. The next day and the next week, I was unbelievably sore. And then last week, I went and did the Ring of Honor pay-per-view and then the TV tapings in Massachusetts. And my body stopped being sore, but for some reason, my hips were killing me. And then I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, someone posted a video of me doing 3 moonsaults in a row. I retweeted it, and then I think that would be it. I think that's why my hips really started to hurt. They started to hurt during the shows and the TV tapings, and I got through it easily. I stretched enough, and I'm a good enough pro where I can kind of hide that kind of stuff. But Sunday and Monday were a couple hard days for me, so I am taking off the IWA Mid-South show 20th anniversary. My apologies to everyone down there who might be listening right now and maybe going to the show and being like, fuck, I wanted to see Colt. I will be back, and I do, believe me, I do appreciate the idea that IWA Mid-South has been around for 20 years. 20 years. You can talk to Dave Prazak about that, too. From guys like Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert, American Kickboxer, Tarek the Great, Bull Payne. So many people have been within that company, and I will be back, Uncle Ian. I will be back. I apologize. I'm still going to make the show in Chicago, though. I'm still going to head over to Kansas City. I will do my best. The TV tapings in Massachusetts were Pretty fucking crazy. We wrestled in this building, I think it was the Lowell Coliseum of some sort, and these are the buildings that are my favorite, the ones with history, and so many fans and wrestlers were like, this is where I watched wrestling as a kid, this is where wrestling happened, this is where Shawn Michaels lost his smile. People were telling me about watching Andre and Hulk in that building, and that's always a place in my heart. It's kind of romantic when you're like, oh, I'm in the same locker room that these guys were in, and I'm going to entertain the same way that they did. Really makes you feel part of a brothership or a fraternity of the world of professional wrestling or something cheesy or corny like that, but you get the idea. And these were great crowds. I think that's a staple of the Boston area, is just great wrestling crowds, great wrestling fans. I'm doing something fun in Ring of Honor, Dalton Castle, tagging up with Dalton Castle. And I'm not going to come on here and start doing like promos with Dalton Castle about our shows. I find that super weird. I don't know how you guys feel, maybe as a wrestler in wrestling, but when someone posts a YouTube video that's like shot in their house or shitty apartment, like saying I'm going to fight someone, and if it's not done correctly, like produced well, and it just looks so weird or cheesy. And same with the Twitter, like if one second you're talking about this great concert you went to, and then the next day you're telling the Briscoe brothers how much you hate their guts or whatever it might be, it's kind of silly to me. I know there's a way to promote, but I also know that there's a way not to promote. So I do not plan on using this podcast in any way to do anything with storylines, except to, try to urge you to love wrestling and come out to the shows. That's why people do that. They want you to come out to the shows. This is how I'm urging you to come out to the shows, by giving you these fun chats, and then you going, oh yeah, wrestling rules. I'm going to go to that show because I love wrestling. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully you love wrestling. If you were in Lowell, Massachusetts in the pay-per-view and you saw Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, the Young Bucks, and the Motor City Machine Guns have an epic ladder match, then I got a feeling we're all on the same page. Go out of your way to see this, I think. The Young Bucks are fucking rock stars. Kazarian's a fucking animal. Christopher Daniels, 46 years old. And I don't want to make age a part of it. I know he doesn't want to make age a part of it. But he's a fucking champion, man. Over 20 years in wrestling. Over 20 relevant years in wrestling. Someone I am proud to look up to. And someone I'm proud to share a locker room with. Chris Daniels. A real professional wrestler. All right, we do have a song of the week this week, and it's brought to you by 54club.com, because either A, you hate shopping, B, you don't know how to shop, C, you don't have time to shop, or D, you've just given up altogether. I don't blame you. 54 is going to make it all better, guys. Don't you worry. They're an LA-based brand, and they are a brand. You can't get their clothes in stores. You have to be a member. All you got to do is go to 54club.com, sign up. It's $60 a month. It's free shipping. It's super easy. They have different styles for different occasions. You can choose from classic, casual, forward, or mix. Maybe for work, maybe for school, maybe for church, maybe for a wrestling convention, maybe for a wrestling show, maybe for a wrestling promo. 54 will make you look good. You're curious as to how easy it is? Are you? You gotta be, right? Well, just go to 54club.com, use the promo code COLT at sign up. This will get you 50% off your first month of 54 Club packages. Again, that promo code is COLT. That gets you half off for your first month, and that deal ends at the end of October. So go to FIVEFOURCLUB.com now and start looking good. All right, the song of the week this week is brought to you by Captain Catfish. It's off their brand new album, A VHS Guide to Indigenous Cryptids. Might be Cryptides, but I think it's Cryptids. You can buy their album at CaptainCatfish.bandcamp.com. That's spelled F-E-E-S-H if you're curious. These guys are hillbilly crypto punk. They're from Morgantown, West Virginia. Maybe they can go look after Jamie Noble. Jesus, did you hear about that? He got fucking stabbed. I hope he's doing all right. Captain, head on over to Jamie's house. Sing a song for him. Right now, we're going to play your song, Ghost Heat, and then we're going to come back with Scott D'Amore.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Good news, guys. You know about Harry's Razors, right? Well, Harry's is now going to send you a free trial set. That's right, free. All you got to do is pay shipping. Harry's is my favorite razor company. It's what I use. I'm excited when I hear that you guys use it. I've been using it for years now. You know me. I'm a frugal man, but I also like great quality, and that's why this relationship has been so great with myself and Harry's. Harry's recently upgraded their razors, but guess what? Still the same low price. $2 a blade, that's it. They got rid of the middleman, they went to Germany, they bought the factory, and now you get sweet deals. All right, the free trial set, let's talk about it. It's a razor, 5-blade cartridge, and shaving gel. All you gotta do is pay the shipping, and then it's free when you sign up for a shave plan. Plus, I'm gonna get you a special offer for the Art of Wrestling fans. Get a bottle of post-shave balm added free if you go to harrys.com/wrestling. Again, HARRYS.com/wrestling. That's gonna get you the free post-shave balm. That's gonna get you your free trial set, and that's gonna be the way you change your shaving game forever when you go to harrys.com/wrestling. Are you a big cusser?
I find when I'm around wrestling, I become a big cusser.
Because you just mentioned that you noticed that I cuss, but not too much.
No, it was kind of like the right level of cussing. Enough that it's cutting edge, but it's not over the top. Like I'd let an 11-year-old listen to the amount of cussing you had, and I could just explain to him that adults like talk like that.
And there's whenever there's parents and there's this guy named Kevin in Vancouver, and he once brought his daughter is Brayden. She was 6 at the time. And he's like, we listen to the Art of Wrestling. I'm like, oh my god. And he's like. And it's always the best parents. They're like, she knows the bad words and she knows not to say this. And so I found I used to use cussing in matches a lot, and it was so easy and cheap.
You used to actually in front of the crowd?
Yeah, if you're hey, fuck you, and it's just so easy and cheap. And now as I get older and more experienced, I find myself realizing how cheap it is almost.
I was broken so old school that if I ever would have cussed, I would have got my ass beat when I got in the back. So it didn't happen. But I always found it was like laying out matches. You just throw the word fuck and everything. So I'll give you a fucking tackle and you hit the fucking ropes. And then you do that in the locker room. And it's only around wrestling that I'd go to my daily life. And still today, right? Because like all of us, I lead this double life. And it's I'll almost be sitting there in a meeting. And it's almost I want to conduct the meeting like I'm calling spots, get the fucking laptop plugged into the fucking gimmick, and you have to decompress from the wrestling side of things.
And then when you're calling stuff, when you say oh, I'll hit you with that fucking elbow in the back, it sounds like it's going to be glorious.
It's going to be awesome, right? Emphasis added.
Yeah, and then the ring, it's it didn't sound as good as it did back then. What do you mean? So when you say going old school, do old wrestlers not swear?
Not in front of the crowd, no.
That's a big no-no?
At least how I was. I was taught that, you don't swear in front of the crowd, right? I think it was probably a generational thing, right? There's you watch 70s and 80s wrestling, you don't see cussing.
I guess you don't. Do you think the Sheik though gave a fuck about that? Do you think the Sheik respected the no swearing?
Bro, the Sheik didn't talk in public. Okay. He traveled with his slave girl so that he didn't have to speak in public. Maybe he was cussing. Did you ever meet Sheik? Original Sheik?
No, I did not.
Bro, I'd heard all these things, and I'm in Detroit working for Malcolm Monroe Sr., DBA's dad. Yeah, so and Sheik's on the show, right? And it's the first time I'm ever going to meet Sheik. And the guys in the locker room, Sheik was so good at kayfabe. The guys in the locker room, and you saw some of the guys in the Detroit locker room, when you came around, 2000-ish roughly. And this is mid '90s, so a lot of guys who were kind of J-Bros, and they were in the back. They were in awe of Sheik because they grew up watching Sheik. I'm young enough, I didn't. So I thought it was cool because I knew he was a legend. I knew who he was. So I meet him. Mickey Doyle, who's one of my trainers, takes me to him because Sheik broke in Mickey.
Irish Mickey Doyle.
1971 NWA Rookie of the Year. Big plug. And Sheik basically shoos Mickey away, sits me down, talks to me for 20 minutes. Basically, I guess I pass whatever test it is. And he says, "Where's your bag?" I said, "Oh, it's in the other." Because there's 2 locker rooms, right?
How did you get this talk though?
Well, Mickey brought me over to introduce me. Want to say, "Hey, Sheik, this is my boy Scott. This is like my guy that I'm trying to help out." So Sheik basically told Mickey, "Go take a walk, sit." And basically just asked me a bunch of questions, not meanly or anything, was pretty cool. And at the end of the deal, he goes, "Where's your bag?" And it's a hockey arena, so there's the visitor and the home dressing rooms, right? And all the boys, like 40 of them in the indie show, are packed into the one locker room. And Sheik's got the other one to himself because he's the fucking Sheik. Yeah. And he goes, "Where's your bag?" "Oh, in the other room." He goes, "Oh, get it out of there with those jabrones. Change in here with me and Mickey." So as I walk out, all these indie guys who are way older than me are going, "Were you in there with the Sheik?" "Yeah." "What was he like?" And I'm like, okay. "Did he threaten you?" And I'm like, "What?" Yeah. I'm like, "No, he told me to grab my bag and change in there." He didn't threaten you? Did he have his blade? What the fuck is wrong with you? You're grown men,
But it's that almost, not to cut you off, but that almost sums up, I think that sums up your whole career is you having this weird like veteranship and power like at like that's like weirdly not, you know, like what, like how does that even, right? Like all these guys, is it just from being a normal, like being a normal maybe?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of offended because you said I didn't earn my veteranship.
But there's those guys. Well, come on, dude. What did you say? You were booking WCW 3 years into wrestling or something?
I wasn't booking. I never booked WCW.
Okay.
Well, that'd be awesome if I did.
Yeah.
I worked I was a jobber in WCW, and then I just started, as I said, Steve Lombardi told me carry papers in my back pocket and just pretend I'm doing stuff. But I helped Jody Hamilton, who was like, he used to book all the enhancement personnel, jobbers, whatever, underneath guys, extras, whatever term you want to use. And I just started, I got like office work, but I wasn't booking. My thing was like, hey, Colt Cabana, you're here, sign the sheet so you get paid. Oh, you drove here, here's your trans sheet so you get your trans money.
That's a power position in wrestling.
Bro, and I was 18 years old.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was awesome.
You're right. Right? That's a power position where now all of a sudden the boys are like, well, look, I don't want to upset this guy because he can do something.
Hey, that Mark DeMore has papers in his back pocket.
That's what's going on.
Those papers were power. Just the fact that I had a copy of the shows, and back then there was no formats like there are now. It was basically like each tape had a sheet and it just had the match, like like entrance,
But you
match.
had that sheet.
I had that sheet in my pocket, and I pulled that thing out and looked around like I gotta look important. Right. Yeah, honestly, for me though, I think the gimmick was I realized that at 5'0" and even when I was in shape and stuff, I was still like at best I was just I was a spark plug. I was like when I was in shape, I was just like a thick, not fat guy, as opposed to the fat guy I've been for most of my life and career. But I knew the chances of me being like a superstar wrestler weren't that good, but I just wanted to make my living in the business, and if that meant being a producer, an office stooge, whatever it was, then damn it, I was going to do it. Well, it's because the funny in WCW, Jody Hamilton was the masked assassin, right? Like a pretty big deal, and then he had David Penzer, who ended up being the ring announcer. But at the time, Dave used to drive a van with all the jobbers from Florida, and his nickname was Stooge. Because he wasn't in a business, he was a little guy, never wrestled, never took a bump, so he was the stooge. So then when I started working, it's like there was Jody, then there was Penzer, and then I was kind of like seen as beneath Penzer. So, God, this is going to bring back like old scars. I'm opening old wounds, but I used to be called the Stooge's Stooge because, Penzer was the stooge, and I was below him, so I was the Stooge's Stooge. I was below him, not blowing him, just to be clear.
And so what you like, it was like your destiny to get that off of you, right?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't care, bro. I had papers in my back pocket. Hulk Hogan gave me a raise. Like that was one of my coolest moments in WCW. Is Hulk got pissed off because of how like they were using because I used to drive from like Windsor, which is right near Detroit, down to Georgia, whatever, right? And I'd drive down for 2 days or 3 days, whatever. But I wouldn't drive down for one they just had one taping. Well, when Hulk came in, he got hot because when they were only taping like one tape or something, like one day, they would just use local guys, and some of the local guys were not gonna and I guess this is because I was striving for that power. I booked like all guys that were jacked and looked good, like guys that weren't like me, right? And I'd bring down 6, 8 other guys with me to do jobs
from Detroit. Pick them up along the way?
Like, bro, I was bringing Barry Hardy to WCW, right? Like Barry Hardy was like a named jobber, but he ended up on my roster. And because I wanted to have the biggest roster. Because here's the deal: as long as there's one carload going, I'm going. I don't care how many carloads after that. I'm going and I'm getting paid. So Hulk didn't like the local jobbers, and when he said, "Where's our normal jobbers?" They were like, well, they don't come when we're only doing like one day. He's like, why not? And he goes, well, because we only pay him, X amount of dollars. And Hulk goes, why don't you just give him more? And he goes, like how do he goes, well, the guy who organized him is his kid, Scott. And he brings down the carloads.
Hulk, you know how you make $18 billion?
Right. Can I have 4 instead of 2?
$400 of that.
Right. But in fairness to Hulk, like in the next time I came down, Jody Hamilton, he goes, hey, kid, he goes, you're getting a goddamn raise. And I said, oh, really? He goes, Hulk says so. And I'm like, oh, wow. And he doesn't really give me the story. And then he kind of gives me just the highlights. So I'm sitting there and Hulk comes up and he goes, hey, did they talk to you, brother? And I'm like, yeah, I really appreciate it. He goes, don't thank me. I'm doing it because I'm selfish. I go, oh, okay. He goes, here's the deal. I'm never going to touch you or any of your guys, but you and your guys are going to work with the guys who are going to work with me. And if they don't look good, I don't look good. So I'm doing this to make me look better.
Now, the face you're making right now is pretty mean. Did he say it like that mean?
No, I just it was Hulk Hogan. I was intimidated.
Okay. Yeah, in your head, it was mean.
Yeah.
He was doing it. He's just like, all right, hey, here's the deal.
And it was one of those things. It's kind of like, I'm like, Hulk Hogan just called me Scott. And honestly, I love that time in the business for me because I was making money. I was making a living, and you don't work hard. Like
Sure.
maybe you work 3 minutes a night if you work every night. And
wait, as doing the jobs also
doing the jobs,
right.
Because that's really what I got paid
doing
for.
Jobs and having that piece of paper.
And having that piece of paper just made sure I could get booked whenever I wanted.
Right.
That's
well. So take me back to the being years later now when you talk the Sheik talk intrigued me a little bit.
Yeah.
Where he tested you and you passed the test. Do you know, like looking back, what that was test that you passed?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
I just sat I talked to him like I would talk to anybody who just like showing respect. Now he asked me questions. He asked where I was from. I said Windsor, Ontario. It's not a trick question.
Right.
He asked me how long I've been working. I told him how long I've been working. He asked me a few questions about background and that, like sports, whatever. I answered the questions. He asked me, like how many matches I had, all that stuff. He asked me if I was usually a heel or a baby face. I said, well, I like to be a heel. But really at this point in my career, whatever the promoter wants me to do, I do. Ask me what I wanted to do. And I said, I want to make my living and be a wrestler and make money. Like, I don't want to dig ditches. Like digging ditches sucks. Like I've done it. Like I probably didn't say it like that, but I mean, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want this to be my job. I want this to be like what I do. And then the answers were good enough that I got to change in his locker room.
Right. Was that the first, did you see that? I know, we're all I'm pinpointing on that, but was the first, the first, kind of in that you felt in wrestling, or had you felt ins before?
No, because I'd already been, I had done a few WWF shows, and I'd done a bunch of probably 2 years in WCW by that point when I met Sheik. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean,
so you had a little confidence, a little swag behind you.
I don't know if I had swag with Sheik, but
your own,
in my brain, I was, probably better than I probably thought I was better than I really was. But I look back, I remember calling Al Snow one time and being like, Al, I'm sorry. And he goes, sorry for what? And I called him out of the blue. I hadn't talked to him in like a year. I'm like, I'm sorry. And he goes, for what? I go, every stupid, obnoxious thing I ever said or did. And he goes, that's a pretty long list. And I'm like, I said, I just had an epiphany, and I just realized, because I remember, because Al was really good to me, and I used to go live at his gym and stay there. I had dinner with him and his first wife, Pam, and I mean, I worked all the shit, and I learned a ton from him. I consider him one of my mentors. And I remember I'd look up and he'd have this look on his face, right? Like the disapproving dad, right? And I'd be like, what's with Al? But it's because I was an obnoxious fucking kid, right? And I got booked a lot. And, like I said, I mean, I have no delusions about what I was. I was 5'0", and I was a pudgy kid. But I hustled. I worked the phones. I called everything. I worked in a roller rink in Hammond, Indiana, where I worked second from the top because the Power Rangers were, the pink and green Power Ranger had top billing on the show. And the promoter stiffed me on the pay, but gave me 2 tickets to the first ever Blackhawks game at the United Center, right? Like, it was like, but I just wanted to get out and work, and I hustled, and I was getting booked places. And yeah, in my stupid teenager, 20-year-old brain, bro, I was wrestling on WCW and WWF TV. Right. Like, still to this day, not that I had a great career, but all the TNA shit I did, everything I've done, Tokyo Dome, all that type of shit. Like, I had a reunion, it was a golf tournament for the college football team I played for. And the guys, when we get together, like, I remember I woke up, all shit-faced, from a night of partying, and the TV's still on, and it's wrestling, and I'm Windsor, Ontario, Scott Demore, and there's Scotty on TV, and then this big black dude came out. His name was Ahmed something, and he murdered Scott. But it didn't matter. That wrestlers had this mentality, like, oh, don't do jobs, because then you're going to be a jobber.
Yeah, that's changed a lot.
And you're never going to be able to do anything in a business if you're a jobber.
Now, when I came, 99, I came in, that mentality was still a thing.
Yeah.
That I think was passed on from the ones before me, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like my trainers, who were probably around at the same time.
Yep.
You know, Ace and Danny.
Yep. I mean, I worked Windy City with Ace and Danny.
There you go.
They were great. Yeah.
There you go. And that was a thing that they said, like, you know. And then when I started, kind of, you know, maybe that mid 2000s, like people were trying to get on those Metal and Jack shows to get to be a jobber. So
I mean, it just, to me, it was crazy. And I mean, I remember thinking at times, excuse me, like I must be stupid because the only reason why I could make my living in wrestling, the only reason why I could wrestle in Hammond, Indiana, and get screwed and only get $20 in hockey tickets and be okay, is because WCW taped shows on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. And I could go down there when I started, I made $1.50, right? Mm-hmm. By the time I was done, I made 300, right? 400, I think at the very end. You know, and then I kind of got good with the trans sheets, so I got paid extra because I was in charge of them. So, I mean, you look at what everybody else was stealing from WCW. I don't think me putting an extra few $100 in my pocket on trans was the biggest crime. But I loved it. Like I hung out, got drunk with like Arn and Flair. Like I remember sitting in the hotel shuttle, and Arn was mad because we had pulled him out of the bar because we had to get back. And he gets back and he's pissed off and he just starts screaming. And I got these two J-Brones in the damn back here giggling like a couple fucking idiots because they just ain't in Canada no more. And I'm like sitting there and like one of the guys turns around and goes, "You okay?" I'm like, dude, Arn Anderson just healed on me. Right? Like, this is awesome.
He knows who I am.
You know?
I'm J-Bro number 1.
Right? And that's like I remember, this to tell you what a big marker was for Arn. I'd been there for over 2 years. Totally different story, by the way. And we're in the locker room at Center Stage. And Arn's old school. And in those days, there was still, you come in, you put your bag down, you shake every hand, right? And if he knows you, you know, you just shake their hand. Hey, man, if you don't know him, you introduce yourself, right? Like old wrestling etiquette, which sometimes I think doesn't seem to exist anymore and drives me crazy.
I'd almost disagree, though.
Yeah, well, you would know better than me because you're out there way more.
Everyone kind of runs up, it's almost a little abrasive. Like, all right, I get it.
Well, then I'm just a dick. Yeah. So, F me. But, you know, and there's a bunch of guys that had never been there before. So Arn's kind of working his way down the line. He's like, "Hey, nice to meet you, Arn Anderson. Nice to meet you, Arn Anderson." So he gets to me, and in my brain, you know, I'm probably maybe 21. And in my brain, it could never compute that Arn knows who I am. So as he gets in front of me, I kind of half stand up and I stick my arm out and I go, "Hey, Arn, Scott Demore." He grabs my hand and starts yanking me. And he's making a scene. Like, if you know Arn at all, he's having fun with this. And he's yanking on me going, "God damn, Scott, how fucking stupid you think I am? You've been here for 2 goddamn years." You know? And he's just screaming at me and hollering. And everybody's kind of like, "Yee." So then he kind of like slaps me on the chest and smiles and walks away. And Gary Michael Capetta, who's a great dude, is sitting there next to
on the show.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he kind of is like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, Arn Anderson knows my name and knows I've been here. Like, I'm good.
Am I okay? Did you just see that little joke fest we just had?
Right, like me and Arn, we're buddies. We're on joking terms,
just
right?
An improv scene there. And
he didn't fake chop anybody else in the locker room, just me.
Okay, to get to that point, though, there's something, because I mean, mainly this is an independent wrestling podcast.
Okay,
and you did. I'm just saying, you did like those early '90s indies.
Yeah,
like are so romantic and glorious to me. I assume like, for like the shitty, like you said, the roller rink stuff, and probably. And then we talked a little bit about this about dinner, just the stuff people wore, like the neon colors, and I'm sure you had tassels, and I'm sure you had. I'm gonna guess like a orange singlet with purple trunks, and then like maybe like a purple trunks or long purple tights and purple trunks over it, you know, like
you know, K&H was the place where you got wrestling tights, right? When I broke in '92, you got your tights at K&H, and a lot of times it wasn't like spandex was like a new thing, right? Like,
I just like learned about that.
Bro, it was like so heavy, like before the spandex came in.
It was what? It was like canvas, right?
Yeah, it was like nylon or whatever it was. It's just awful.
So they just invented spandex in the last 30 years?
I think they had spandex, but wrestlers weren't using it. Bro, and K&H is where you got so everybody looked the same.
I wonder who invented wearing spandex.
I don't know, but that guy's a genius.
Yeah, right?
Right? But you got your tights at K&H, and you got your boots at BA Boot Shop, Billy Ash, and then you were a wrestler, man. And I stayed away from the goofy colors, right? Like I was blues, I was reds, I was blacks. You know, because I learned that fat and really bright colors don't go together. You need to not wear really bright colors when you're fat, and you need to tan.
Yeah.
Because as Denny Cass told me 25 years ago, I said, "Hey, Denny, you working out?" You look at Denny was like an indie guy, like at the end of the Outlaw days, and it was like I go, Denny, you working out? He goes, "No, I tanned my fat. Tan fat looks better than white fat." And I'm like, bam, there's knowledge. There's knowledge from a guy whose job is that he's worked as he's been a junior executive at Ford's for 40 years, and he's only wrestled in the area, right? Like he was part of Bruiser Bedlam, like WWA and that stuff. They had a TV and everything in Detroit, but it was like after like big time wrestling died. This guy's never going to be a national TV star, but he just taught me a very important lesson. Tan fat looks better than white fat. Bam, writing that down.
And then what were those tanning beds like? Weird as shit, probably, right?
Oh, back then, yeah. It's like, and it's like you're like, holy shit, like
for 90 minutes, right?
yeah. You think about it now, right? Like you go, you get a tan. Like, what are you there for? 6 minutes, 8 minutes tops.
I remember when
40 minutes, 45 minutes.
Yeah, when
you should take a nap.
I used to work out at Bally's when I was 13, 1993, and they had like in the middle of the gym, they had like this stand up.
Yeah.
People would go tanning in the middle of the gym. Like it wasn't even like. There wasn't even a business back then for tanning beds. I think it was at the gyms.
Yeah, and gym beds were the worst because they never changed the lights, right? So yeah, if you tan for 45 minutes in a real tanning bed, a gym one, yeah, you could lie in there and sleep for an hour and a half. Like I used to go to the gym after hours because I didn't have a real membership. I just knew the guy at the counter, and then they had a tanning bed, and I just like take a nap in it for like an hour and a half because the bulbs are basically the equivalent of like a light, like a halogen light that you have in an office.
So, how old were you when you 92? How old were you? Because were you 18 or were you way younger when you got into wrestling?
I started training in 91 when I was 16. I had my first match in 92 when I was 17. I actually had to, because Ontario, like the province of Ontario, used to have an athletic commission. You had to have a wrestler license. You had to be 18. So my first wrestler's license, I used my brother's name, right? Because he just had to fill out a form. So I just filled it out. I didn't even tell him, just put his name on it, and went there and wrestled. I was 17, and I remember it was a Saturday. I don't remember the date. It was a Saturday in June, and my senior prom was the following Friday. And my date for the senior prom, because I was lucky enough to talk a girl into...
Was Miss Elizabeth.
Yes, it was Miss Elizabeth. But I was lucky to get a girl who was like way too pretty for me to be willing to be seen in public with me and go to my prom. And like as I'm getting ready to go to the wrestling show, she's like, good luck, have fun. And she's like, but don't you dare get a mark on your face. I'm like, okay, like no problem. She goes, no, seriously. She goes, there better not be a fucking mark on your face. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. And she grabs me by the shirt and she goes, with the exception of my wedding day, my prom has been the day that I've been looking forward to the most since I was a little girl. And if you fuck that up, I'm going to kill you. So I had to go to a wrestling show, having my first match, and go to a dude who was a veteran to me, and basically say, like,
who was it?
His name's Otis Apollo.
I know it is.
Yeah, he actually ended up being my tag team partner for a couple of years. Good guy, good worker. I had to go to him and say, please, like, don't hit me. Like, I don't care. Break my ribs, like blow my knee out. Just please, please, please don't hit me in the face. And he's like, so I told him why. He says, like, you know what? He's going to rib me in it. And I said, no, seriously, like, this girl will kill me. Like, she will take a knife and stab me in the face. So he didn't. He didn't hit me in the face, which was good. So, and I won my first match. I wasn't supposed to. He screwed up and stayed down, and I was like, oh, it works just as good.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
God, yeah, I think it took me a while to win a match.
I didn't win another one for a long and the best, we had the same trainer, right? So our trainer was like, what the hell? And of course, it thinks like I shot on him, like, because like I'm like, yeah, I'm a real shooter. I'm a 17-year-old kid who's scared that his prom date's gonna beat him up. And I'm like, he stayed down, and then he's kind of like, it was the separate locker rooms, right? And this was funny. This is the only show I ever saw. There was a tape recorder in each room, and the babyface room. I guess the heels didn't need one because he was there. Our room had a tape recorder, and it'd be like first match, Scott D'Amore versus Otis Apollo. Apollo over with the splash in 10 minutes. Right? And you had to listen to the tape.
Weird.
It's so weird, right? Can you imagine that now?
That was a thing.
We didn't get to see each other, right?
Because like that, they didn't just do that for that show. That was a thing that
That was
probably
like,
dated back to the 70s.
I had heard about it because, and I remember going to Grand Prix Wrestling and working for Emile Dupree, Renee's dad. And that was a hot territory back in the day. Not so much when we got out there, but, we got to work every day. We got to wrestle 7 days a week. And legitimately, the 7 days a week, twice on Sundays, we legitimately did double shots some Sundays. So we do 8 shows if we did a double shot on Sunday, and for all that glorious work, we'd get $500 Canadian. But we were making our livings and we were wrestlers, and a lot of those buildings, like the old hockey arenas, which is what you do a lot of in Canada,
tape recorders in them from back then. Is that what it is?
Honestly, they weren't there, but the locker rooms were at the opposite sides, so you had to call it in the ring. So literally, like, while I'd be like, hey, like. I tell the ref like call us together for instructions. 1 to kill time because Emile was cheap, so there was 5 matches. So you always had to go like 20 minutes. And then we'd get there, and while the ref's giving us instruction, I'd be like, okay, blah blah blah, let's do this. Like, what do you want to do for a finish? And I was super lucky because a lot of the show, like I worked around the horn a bunch of times with Christian Cage. I worked around the horn with Edge. I worked around with Todd McPhee, Mike Lazansky, who was Tigre Canadiense in Mexico. We had a good group of baby faces, but I mean, working Christian's super easy. I don't know if you ever worked with him, but he's probably the smoothest dude. Like if you said like you have to wrestle one dude for the rest of your life, I'd wrestle Christian until I was 100 because he's smart, he's fun, and he's safe. He's just smooth and easy. Yeah,
dare I say I've never heard a bad thing about the guy.
Well, no, he's a fucking dick. But wrestling wise, he's. But we'd sit there and and then we just have fun, and that's that's cool. And I mean, like I saw, like I don't want to like blow you on the podcast here, but we'll do that afterwards. But like you and RJ City tonight, who you wrestled at the show, to me. Like I know you guys, did your shtick in the back and whatever else, I'm sure, and put your stuff together. But to me, there wasn't a cadence of, okay, we're gonna go from this spot to this spot to this spot. It was guys out there working.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was in a match the other night, and like maybe I'll put a lot of stuff together, and then something happened, and I totally flipped the script. Right. And the guy kept wanting to go back to the script, and I was like, oh, like I forgot to tell him that like. No, like we don't. That's just a guideline, and I'm comfortable enough to just do whatever the fuck.
Right. You're gonna feel the crowd.
Yeah. But I assume I'm kind of going off what I have. But if I feel something completely else, actually, now that I remember, this was in Ireland, and like I brought a kid in to be a referee, and like I did all this. It was the carnival, man. And
that's unusual because you're usually just the catch as catch can master, very straight, playing it by the book, world of sports,
earmuff, Rick Steiner earmuff,
right?
And he was like he kept on trying to go back. Like we had gone into. I know this is weird psychology that I don't even want to get into, but we had gone into the heat, and he was trying to go back to spots that I'd called in the shine, and stuff, or in the beginning. I shouldn't even talk about that stuff, but anyways, it was just like, oh yeah. So like that's how I do. Like it's weird because I'm a mixture of the old school because I'd like to think that from Danny and Ace they taught me like the Memphis way, and obviously I've adapted to the new school, so I have that weird mixture of it, which you've had to see too. Like you're in both of those categories. Yeah, that mix of like you have to evolve a little bit, but you have to kind of hold on a little bit of your old.
I remember when I broke in, there was a wrestler out of Detroit by the name of Steve Nixon. And
I remember Steve Nixon.
Yeah. And we broke in around the same time. He was trained by Al. I was trained by the Canadian Destroyer, but then we both were training at Al Snow's school. And
you weren't trained by Mickey Doyle?
I was trained by the Canadian Destroyer first, and I had my first couple matches. Then Mickey Doyle came, and he started training with us, and he like really took me under his wing. And really started teaching me, getting me booked. He's the one through Charlie Fulton sent me to my first WWF shows, and just helped me get booked everywhere. And having his stamp of approval in the Midwest meant like, oh, Mickey says you're fine. Like, don't send us a tape, nothing. Just be there, on August 7th, like whatever. So like he really did a lot of that. But Nixon, and this is where I know I was a total dick. He used to write spots down and like think of ideas and plan out his match. And I just used to rib him unmercilessly. I'd tear his pages up. I'd fuck with him in the locker room. I'd just belittle him because I was just a total dick. And I've gone to Steve multiple times because Steve is best friends with one of my best friends, A.T. Huck, who you know very well. And I've tried a million times to tell Steve, like I loved his work, like, 'cause he was so funny and entertaining and goofy and weird, like he's in real life. And I'd be like, man, I really love your stuff. And he'd be like, and he'd go to Huck, why is he always ribbing me? I'm like, no, like, Huck, like, I really do like him. And I've tried to apologize a ton of times and be like, Steve, I was a total piece of shit. And you were actually ahead of your time, and I was just an obnoxious dick. And I'm very sorry. And he gets madder all the time because he thinks I'm still screwing with him. But like, I remember thinking, like, he's writing down spots. Then, you know, fast forward 15 years, and I got Kurt Angle blowing up my phone with like ideas for spots for a pay-per-view match, right? Like it's pretty amazing how the businesses came. So yeah, during my time and your time, there really has been a change in how the business is done, and part of that, you know, is TV driven, I think. But that's one of the things I think that's great about like indies and house shows and whatever, because you can still go out there and just have fun and play it and listen, and that's a lot of talents that are out there that I think are really great wrestlers. And I don't want to sound like an old grizzly, but like, I love their stuff. I won't take credit for. Well, fuck it, I will take credit, 'cause I've been erased from the history books of TNA for some reason. So
have you really?
I think so. Like, when's the last time I was ever referenced? Yeah. You know,
but like, are you hated there?
No, I don't think so. Like, I get along. Like, I talked to John Gabork, I talked to Dixie. Like, you know, they've offered me a job again a bunch of times. Like, we're on great terms. I just think somehow along the lines, like, maybe because, I mean, the good thing is, like, you know, people don't talk about what a piece of shit I was like they do Russo. You know, like when people just bury Russo. And I think some of it's, you know, very unfair to Vince. Like, Vince helped give me an opportunity there. So while we have our different opinions of how wrestling should be, I've always had a good personal relationship with Vince. But, you know, they bury Vince. Like me, it's like I'm forgotten. I brought in a lot of talent to TNA, right? And signed a lot of talent. I was the head writer of the show when we launched on Spike TV. I was the only producer for the Knockouts division for the first like 2+ years of the division. You know, I don't get no credit. I mean, it's okay, because I mean, fuck, I got a paycheck. Yeah. You know, and I don't want to sound like Kevin Nash, but it wasn't a small one. But no, they took good care, and they treated me well, right? I mean, I'm unemployable. Because I mean, I'm just so far left of center that I know that I'm really not unemployable. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. That's why I work for myself, because nobody else would want to employ me. And in TNA, they embraced my stupidity.
What are your traits of unemployability?
I double-legged Double J when he walked through the front doors of the TNA office one morning. Yeah, that's a lot of doubles. But literally, because Disco Inferno bet me an $8 stir fry that I wouldn't. Like, you think I'm not stupid enough to do that? I'll show you. And Russo's there, bro, he ain't going to do it. Scotty D ain't going to do it. He ain't going to double-leg Jeff when he walked through the door. You know, oh, bang, double-legged him.
Where does this come from?
I don't know.
Where does this stem from? Were you a single child? No, you had a brother.
No, I had a brother. I don't know.
Like, how would you say your personality is? Like a bit fratty? Is that like fair to say?
I think so. Like, I'm very immature in a lot of ways, and I think I departmentalize. I think part of it was, like, honestly, you had said earlier on, about how, like, I kind of like I always, from the time I was 18 years old, I'm the one who made sure we had a ride. I'm the one, because there was no GPS. I'm the one who had the road atlas. I'm the one who plotted out the route, right, like on the maps. I'm the one who got the bookings. I'm the one who booked the hotel. I'm the one who kept track of the gas and everything else and the receipts. Like, I did that from a very young age with the guys I trust. So I think part of, like,
that's a super mature thing to do.
Yeah, so being grown up in some ways, like, so early, I think part of it was, the other half was that when I didn't have to do that, I just stayed a buffoon.
Okay.
You know? and part of it is just like, when I knew I wanted to be a heel, and I wanted to be a performer, and I wanted to be a heel specifically, I was playing T-ball when I was like 7 years old. And in Ontario, like southwestern Ontario, you go to Ancaster, Ontario, if you win your district, and it's the World T-Ball Championships. Really, it's Toronto, you know, west to Windsor. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But it's the World T-Ball Championships. And I was catching because I was fat, but I could hit the ball really far, so I was the last batter, right? So I could hit a lot of home runs. And, so I just fat, and I'm standing there, and I put the ball on the tee. Well, the guy's coming around to home, and I catch the ball, and I just wheel around like 360 to tag him. And I was like an obnoxiously large kid. Like, I was 90 pounds in kindergarten. Like, I was huge. And when I swung around, like, I'm just a kid. I just want to tag the guy out. But as I swung around, I basically, like, Polish hammered him in the face. And to me, it's like I was in like, Madison Square Gardens and everybody went crazy. There was really probably, like 50, 60 parents there. And they started screaming and booing. I murdered this kid, like hit him right in the face with my glove with the ball in
7?
it. Yeah. And I'm just standing there like, oh, like, he's hurt and I think he's out. And there's like this fat woman and she's like, he's too big to be out there with those kids, blah, 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 blah. And people are booing and like all this. And I'm like, this is pretty fucking cool, right?
You're an evil person.
So that's where that's funny. Stevie Richards always call me the evil Scott.
Really? There you go.
He's like, you smile, you're polite. I'm like, but you say I'm always polite. You are polite. That's part of being evil. Evil doesn't present itself and say, hey, look at me, I'm the devil. Right? But I think that's part of. I like getting a reaction out of people. So if I got to double leg the boss as he walks through the fucking front doors of the office to get the moron Disco Inferno and Disco and Vince Russo to pop, but damn it, that's what I'm gonna do. And they embraced that, right? Like Jeff didn't talk to me for half a day, right? That's how he dealt with it. And I said to him later, I'm like, what? He goes, what the fuck was I gonna do? Really, what I should have done is fire you, and I didn't want to fire you because we had too much work to do. So like that, yeah. But they erased me from history partly. I think I'm a little bitter. Well, I'm gonna rewrite it one day.
And I always enjoyed your hockey flag man, your hockey stick flag man.
Here's the gimmick too, right? Like I went to TNA and I got a job as a producer, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not a performer anymore. I'm a producer. And, we did the whole America's Cup. We had Team Mexico and Team NWA. And then they wanted to do another one. And I had pitched an idea of a Team Canada. But I had pitched it as like basically an enhancement team where Team USA would get a win and then go on to face Mexico in a rematch. And then I get a phone call from Jeff and Dutch were booking the show at the time. And Jeff calls me up and he's like, hey, Scotty D, I'm in the conference room here with Dutch. We've been talking about that Team Canada idea. It's like, sweet. And he goes, we're talking about it because we're going to put together 4 guys. Give me your thoughts on guys. He goes, we're kind of thinking like Team AAA, like Team Mexico has Antonio Pena as like their leader. And we think Canada needs a leader. And I was like, okay, cool. He goes, you got any ideas? I said, there's only one guy for that spot. Jeff goes, that's what we were thinking. And I go, Bret Hart. And there's like dead air, right? And Jeff goes, well, we were kind of thinking of somebody else. And I'm like, who else? And he goes, we were thinking of you. And immediately I'm like, okay, you're going with the cheap, not the good. Yeah. So I'm Mr. because this is not Scotty D the wrestler. I'm serious. I'm like, Jeff, I really appreciate that you guys thought of me, but I've kind of moved past that. And, I just want to focus on being a producer. He goes, all right, let me rephrase this. This isn't your buddy Double J. Or J Double as I used to call him. He was calling his friend saying, hey, what do you think? This is the vice president of TNA Entertainment telling a contracted employee what he wants from him next week.
Right.
I was like, oh. He's like, any questions? I go, what do I wear? And he goes, well, whatever you want, wear a suit, whatever. And I said, okay. I was like, Jeff, I said, but if I do this, I'm not going to be one of these buffoonish managers. I'm going to be serious. I'm going to talk very articulately. I'm not going to be running around like a moron and a jackass, like making an idiot out of myself. Like I'm going to be very serious. I'm going to deliver like I'm thinking I'm going to go deliver soliloquies, right? And he's like, yeah, whatever. Like, he goes, and his last thing, he goes, Scotty, don't stress out. It's like 3 weeks. And actually ended up like a 3-year run, which was pretty cool. It was obviously the best run as a performer I had. But it didn't take long for my buffoonery to come out. Like just in a production meeting, just to pop people in the production meeting. They're like, we got a Canada flag. And I was like, well, what's it on? They're like, a pole. And I'm like, why the fuck would it be on a pole? Like, well, what else you put a flag on? I was like, well, in Canada, we put it on a hockey stick. And Double J's eyes get real big. And he sends Ronnie Harris out to find a hockey stick in Nashville on a Wednesday morning, right? And it's just stuff. And then I end up barking at the camera. And at one point in time when I got mad, I talked with a French accent, even though I'm Italian and I don't know how to speak French, because I used to do impressions to pop Vince Russo. I used to have a tag team partner in Grand Prix Wrestling called Butch. He was Butcher Vachon Jr.
You even called Grand Prix.
Grand Prix.
Grand Prix.
Right? With an X. And I used to do, because Butch was like a caricature of like what a French Canadian is. Hey, Scott, we going to go out there, do the thing like that, the guy, and I'm going to do the body slam. Right?
This sounds like Kevin Steen to me.
Yeah. Wow. So we'd be sitting in a meeting, because I started going to the booking meetings, and when we couldn't figure something out, Vince would be like, bro, Scotty D, bro, what would Butch say? What would Butch say? So I just say stuff. So then Vince is like, well, when you get mad, bro, talk like Butch.
Yeah.
I'm like, but Vince, I'm Italian. Bro, they don't know that. You're from Canada. Everybody speaks French.
True, it's true.
Okay, so now I go from being a serious, articulate manager who is going to give these beautiful soliloquies to I'm carrying a flag on a hockey stick, I'm barking at the camera, and I'm speaking in a French accent when I get mad, even though I'm Italian.
You're like a reverse modern day Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Reverse modern day Hacksaw.
Yeah, you got all the shticks, but you're not USA, you're Canada.
Well, hey, he was a member of Team Canada back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just, so my natural buffoonery. I was lucky enough to be ringside and involved with,
of course,
with you and RJ, and that was fun. And yes,
Right. So before we go, we're winding down here, but you've also done you've done so much weird stuff that I kind of want to hit in the last whatever kind of minutes we have. Is it like from doing weird ECW stuff to going to Japan, right? Like,
yeah.
And I'm not talking like Tokyo Dome. Like, did you do weird All Japan stuff or no? Or like, did you go to anyone for Japan before?
Yeah, the first time I went over was for WAR.
That's what I knew you did. A weird one.
Yeah, and Office Kitao. It was like a work shoot. So I did that. I thought that was great, right? This was 96, so I was like 21, maybe 22. And I'm flown to Japan, and I get met at the airport, and I clear immigrations, and like one kid's grabbing my bags, the other one's my driver, and I'm like I'm a rock star,
Yeah.
right?
You there by yourself?
Nah, Geza Coleman, who was another, because we were there as Dan Severn students, right? Because this is 96. Dan Severn was the ultimate champion with UFC.
And probably a guy you know well from that area, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was actually a sparring partner with Dan's. Like, I'm not a tough guy. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I don't say I'm a shoot fighter. I don't say I'm an MMA guy, because I'm not, right? But back then, like, at that time, there wasn't a lot of like bigger, like, martial artists. They were mainly smaller guys. So Dan just wanted big bodies to roll with. So I would go with Dan, train with Dan, grapple with Dan, just so he had a big body to maneuver around, like another big body. And, I got to do work shoots. Like, and they paid good money then, bro. Like, even in the U.S., you could make like $350 doing a work shoot and take no bumps. And, like, working, like, the work shoot that I did in Cork and Hall, my first time over there, I made $1,500 for one match with no bumps.
That's crazy.
Like, I had to eat a couple of stiff kicks to my thigh.
Right. Who'd you work? Shoot.
Kuki Kitahara.
Oh, I wish my name was Kooky.
Yeah.
That's not a great name. Colt Cabana.
Well, your name is Cabana, so you're not losing in the name. But yeah, I did that, and then I did some All Japan. I had a pretty good relationship with Muda and with Uchida, who was like the president at the time or whatever. I think Muda might have been the president. I don't know what Uchida was, but so I had sent like Joe Doring, Phil Atlas, a bunch of
You've
like,
housed a lot of
over
these guys.
Yeah, and I brought over a lot of the Japanese, and they stayed in Windsor with me, trained at my dojo. And I went over there and I did some shows with All Japan. My favorite probably was wrestling in Sumo Arena, and they're just so fucking respectful, right? Like, it was me and Akira Laijin, who's Sushi now, who was Kiyoshi in TNA, and Joe Doring, and their whole idea was, it's you as the sensei and your top American, like, Gaijin student, and your top, Japanese student, 6-man tag. And we worked with the Voodoo Murderers, and like the one of the guys I was working with, God, I can't think of his name. I can see the guy too, the dreadlocks, little guy, great bumper. He wasn't allowed to take any offense on me. Like, literally, like, I was like, I had to go and say, like I need him to cut me off to set up my spot, right?
If I can get offense.
Right, like, I need him to cut me off so I can do my shit. And then they were insistent that I hit the Canadian Destroyer to like, as part of the finish.
Can you hit the Canadian Destroyer?
Yeah. I did it on TNA house shows. Did it at the Gathering one year. Always refused. As soon as J Double and Dutch found out I could do it, like when it was the hottest move in wrestling.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks later, because I'd done it on an indie show, like, just like it was me. I was managing PD against Saban, and I did it to Saban for like, just to fuck with people, right?
Sure.
And then they heard about it, so they had written it into the show. So I actually refused to do it, because to me at the time, the Canadian Destroyer was one of those things that was so cool. Like, everybody thought it was a really athletic thing to do, and it's not. by the fact I can do it. The guy taking
It's
it,
on the guy
absolutely,
taking it,
yeah.
of course.
But they didn't know that yet, right? So I didn't want to do it on TNA. So I'm in Japan, and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to do it. But, I'm not in fucking mood as like, do it. Yes, sir. Right? Like it's the great Muda. I'm gonna shut up and do what I'm told. So I did it, but it was they were just so respectful, right? And then it was just like such a great moment. And Lai Jean's a good friend of mine, and Joe Doring, God bless him, isn't just a student, but he's a very good friend. He's a moron. It's probably why I get along with him.
There you go.
He's a Chicago guy, right?
He is.
And like that was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed that stuff. So I mean,
and then I'm sure you have a million stories, and this will kind of maybe close into our plugs and everything. But you've ran Border City Wrestling now, and you guys used to bring in all the dudes. I'm sure you have a million weird stories of all the guys coming in and names and whatever. And you're a promoter too. I mean, you're literally you dove right into this wrestling industry, right?
Well, and the whole thing, like the Border City thing, like we were running shows and doing regular indie stuff, but the starting to do the TV and that was I wanted to learn how to do TV so that I could. And like WCW had just shut down when we were getting ready to do I'll call it our second run, our real run of TV. And the great thing for me, bad thing for him is WCW had closed down. Terry Taylor had gotten fired. So I called Terry. Literally, I called him. He had just gotten fired along with 400 other Turner employees in a giant room. And he was walking home he was walking into the house, coming back from that to tell his wife, Trudy, God rest her soul, I just got fired. And I called, hey, Terry, can I get you to come up to Windsor, in 2 weeks for a TV? And he basically told me, I just got fired with 400 people. I'm going to go tell my wife that we don't have an income, and I'll call you later. But he ended up coming up, and we would sit up all night and write. But that's why I did it. Like, I wanted to launch a TV. I thought I was going to be the Canadian ECW or whatever else. Like, we were really going to, credit cards maxed out. Sure. Like basically I learned the term check kiting, which is where you write a check from an account that you know there's no money in. And then when the bank, because you basically have 24 hours to fix it. So you use an account at another bank that has no money in it, and you write a check from that, and you just keep circling the money until they catch you.
24 hours. You got right.
Yeah, it's
from
fraud.
124 hours to 124
Yeah,
hours.
it's fraud.
Right.
And it's a criminal offense, and I didn't know that at the time.
Did you go to jail?
I did not. I thought I was just working, man. It wasn't really fraud. I was working, man. Kayfabe. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. We've had like the only indie show The Rock ever did was for me in LaSalle, Ontario.
He did?
Yeah. He was awesome too, because think about this. Like, this is 98. It's 6 days before our show. We're already sold the fuck out because he is The Rock, right? Like, he's on TV. He's still with the Nation, but he just kicked Farouk out. I'm at Skydome. I'm up in the the press box or whatever with Michael Landsberg, who's a big like sports guy here in Canada, and I've got my back to the fucking to the stadium, and I'm just kind of hanging out like oh yeah, blah blah blah. And if you've ever heard 50,000 people go silent, and Michael's just like, you don't want to turn around, because we were talking about how Rocky was coming in for my show. And I turn around and look, and Rocky's in the middle of the ring, clutching his knee and screaming. He blew his knee out. So he calls me a couple days later and says, bad news, I can't wrestle. They pulled me from the house show in Detroit, because it was my show was the Friday, Detroit house show was the Saturday, and the pay-per-view was, I think it was SummerSlam or King of the Ring, whatever, was in Chicago. And they told me not to go to Detroit. I'm like, oh my God. He's like, leave it with me. So The Rock, this is why, God bless him. He should have just said, who cares? Scott's just a guy that I've shared a car with, because me and D'Lo were tight, right? So that's how I got to know Rock. That's why he was coming in. We traveled together some. And he could have just said, fuck Scott, and just blew me off. Instead, he called Vince and said, Vince, just let me go on the road how I was planning. If I stay home until the pay-per-view, my wife is going to put me to work gardening and shit. The best way for my knee to heal is to not be home. So then Vince says, okay, whatever you think. So then he calls me and says, okay, we're good to go. I was like, well, he's still going to let you work my show. He goes, bro, Vince doesn't know I'm working your show. He goes, screw your fucking head on straight. I go, what do you do? He goes, I'm going to show up. He's not going to fucking know. This is 98. We're not thinking internet or anything, right? Yeah. But he said, I can't wrestle. I'm just going to show up, sign autographs. I'll go to the ring. He goes, D'Lo, because it was going to be, I was wrestling D'Lo, and another one of my students, Larry Destiny, was wrestling D'Lo. And Rock basically like got Mark Henry to come in, and the whole idea is that Mark Henry would take his place, whatever, yada yada. So Rock, this is how you know he's a wrestling carny at heart. He's it's in his blood, because he gets to an indie show in front of, I'm going to say 1,000 people, and it might not have been that many, but it's the biggest fucking crowd Border City Wrestling had ever had. I made like $3,000, I think, like profit on the gate, which was like $1 million on indie wrestling at the time, right? And I should lie and say that was 30,000, but it was 3.
I say you should lie and say it was $20 so those workers don't come back at you now. Like,
hey, we used to pay guys $20 and $30. I think I doubled everybody's pay and still did that. But he got to the show, did the gimmick, the Polaroids before the show, and he comes back from that in the locker room and he goes, Scott, let me talk to you. He sits down, he goes, because he really does call himself The Rock. Like, that's the one thing that's kind of annoying about him. Like even he'd call you, Scott, it's The Rock. Who the fuck says that? But he says, he goes, what would you think if The Rock actually wrestled on your show still tonight? And I'm like, well, why would you do that? Well, I'm here, I'm feeling it. So we kind of put the shtick together and did a tag team match. He didn't need to show up one. Then once even he did, like, he had more than done his part just by showing up, and like that way. Because if I false advertise, like, nobody believed he was actually coming. Because there was no smartphone video he could take and send to me to put on social media. So there's people skeptical that he was actually coming. If he wouldn't have shown up, there would have been no more Border City Wrestling from that. There never would have been all those shows with Dreamer and Whipwreck and all that shit. Because he's one of the boys. He showed up, had so much fun, he decided, fuck it, I want to wrestle. Yeah. And we went out there and had like a 20-minute tag match that night.
Right.
And
you were in the match.
Well, of course, I was the promoter, bro.
You wrestled The Rock. Yeah. Cool. And so what's where's Border City Wrestling online?
Go to bordercitywrestling.com for all the latest events. And, we do our thing, only do a few shows a year, just kind of do it it's almost like a reunion. I usually bring up Johnny Swinger once in a while and names from the past and, whoever I can have to come in and have fun. And I just still, one of the things for Border City is trying to have an environment where I think Border City Wrestling, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm egotistical, so I will. Border City Wrestling helped Bobby Roode and Showtime Eric Young and Rhino and Petey Williams and Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley and all these guys work in a controlled environment, an environment that I helped, and many of them have told me help them get ready to be on a national platform. And that's what I still want to go out there and do, because I think it's great to go out there and do the outlaw style indie, but I also think there's something to doing a structured style if you're looking to do this on a higher level. And I try to help do that. I work with a local college, and we use the actual college students do all the production. Nice. Like they're the grips and the camera people, and we blow pyro and you just do have a fun little time. And I still do the wrestling school. We're actually just relaunching. We're going to be doing my first 12-week course. I've always been like the old school, hey, show up like twice a week and wrestle, and then when you're ready, we'll let you have a match. Now it's come in 4 days a week, 4 hours a day. We're going to train you in 12 weeks or you're going to die. You'll still be welcome to come back and everything else, but I enjoy going in the school, putting my phone away for a few hours. Right. Don't care if a building burns down. Don't care what happens. Just being in the ring and thinking I'm right and trying to relay what I think is knowledge.
What's the school called?
Onto it's Can-Am Wrestling School. We started with Mickey Doyle. That was one of my first ventures. And as you talk about like trying to be a veteran young, I debuted in '92. The Can-Am Wrestling School opened in '93.
See, I'm not wrong on that.
Right, but my thing was like, who's gonna let me train them to wrestle? This motherfucker was the NWA Rookie of the Year. He can train people to wrestle. I'll just hustle it. I'll just do the accounting. I'll just, our type of people, Colt, we stay in the background. We account, we hustle, we do our thing.
I love it. Are you on like social media yourself and stuff?
I am at scottdemore.com on Twitter. And
at Scott Demore.
Sorry,
on Twitter.
Hey, bro, it's pretty late. At Scott Demore on Twitter.
Okay.
And I don't have a fan page because I don't have any fans, but I got a Facebook page that's maxed out on friends because people pretend they like me.
You
can still follow me or message me, and I enjoy interacting with people, especially when they have nice things to say about me. Isn't that the great thing about social media? Is I don't usually get messages like, bro, you suck. I get messages like, oh, TNA was the best when you were writing. Like it's positive influence.
I get some sucky messages.
Which is funny because like you are one of, and this is not bullshit. You have always been, from when I met you in Detroit, one of the nicest, like just like easygoing, like coolest dudes, and I'm a dick.
Yeah.
And so people send me nice messages, but you, who one are way more talented than me, go out there and hustle your ass every night in the ring and are super, super nice to everybody, even crazy stalkers. And they send you bad messages.
Well, I don't know. I think it's because people. I don't know. I don't want to dissect it, but that's how the world works.
I'm sure you get lots of nice ones.
Of course I
Yeah.
do, and I always appreciate and love it. It's great. It's
Right.
great when someone.
So I guess if you get 20,000 messages, 4 of them may be rotten. I just get 4 messages, and hopefully they're good.
Right. And the only things that sticks with me is the 4 rotten ones.
Yeah,
I
right.
can appreciate the 20,000.
That's because you're a wrestler, bro. Don't matter how many things go right. Doesn't matter how many things that compliment you. You remember that one guy that said, "You've been hurt for a little bit. Or you've been taking some time off the gym." What the fuck you mean I've been taking?
Yeah.
Right? You want that good? You want like Santino saying, "You're like, bro, you look good in the ring, like thick and strong, big chest."
And we're wrestlers, and I think the summation of that is The Rock, like being like shouldn't give a fuck about the next week. The next day, he's wrestling in front of 20,000,
Right.
but he sees 1,000, and he's like, "I need to impress these people.
Right.
I need to show them I'm great. I'm the man."
He's a fucking mark for himself, like the rest of us, right?
Essentially.
I can't let these people. I'm the Rock.
Yeah, they need to see me. I need to get their gratification.
I need them to let me know I'm okay.
Yeah, it's true, man.
And bro, that dude is making $20,000. Like, I went and saw his movie the other night. Funny as hell, I thought, and he's doing great. But you know that motherfucker's still going on his phone and looking up reviews and seeing who's like if he's trending. He wants to make sure that there ain't
and the Twitter replies too. Man.
Yeah. There ain't some dude in Nebraska who said his movie sucks and he's a phony.
Of course,
right?
We all do it. We all do it.
That's because we're all screwed up.
We are screwed up. Welcome to our world, Scott. Man, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, man, it was awesome. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. All right, again, Border City Wrestling, November 5th. I won't be there, but it's going to be a great show. You should check it out. Demore, he's still got his foot in the world of wrestling. That's what I got to do, man. I gotta get some restaurants and do some business stuff and then also be a part of wrestling. No, like I don't know. You got to diversify, man. If I've learned anything from a business school that I didn't pay attention to, you've got to diversify. All right, Scott, thanks for coming on the show. Before we get out of here, let's get into some plugs and
Upcoming events.
All right, the best way that you can support ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com, Twitter and Instagram at Colt Cabana, Facebook /AOW Podcast, also /Colt Cabana. Ad-free past archives of the show are available on Howl.fm. Use the code COLT. Get yourself a free month. ColtWrestling@gmail.com is my very public email. Maybe a promoter want to put me on your upcoming show or convention. I got a YouTube channel. Also, ColtCabana.com is my website. That's where you can find my P.O. Box and send me something cool in my snail mail. Upcoming October 14th, 15th, 21st, 22nd, 29th, November 3rd and 4th, Chicago, Detroit, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Baltimore, Arlington, San Antonio, ROHWrestling.com. Friday, October 7th, Marionette Park, Illinois, AAWrestling.com. Saturday, October 8th, Kansas City, Kansas, MetroWrestling.com. Sunday, October 16th, Austin, Texas, WrestleCircus.com. I'm in the main event against EC3, Ray Rowe, and Harry Smith. Pray for me. Sunday, October 30th, Gainesville, Florida. Heading to thefestfl.com. Saturday, November 5th, Bedford, Texas, MetroplexWrestling.com. Friday, November 11th, San Francisco, California, AllProWrestling.com. Saturday, November 12th, St. Paul, Minnesota, HeavyOnWrestling.com. That is the show. Amanda, I know you're going to be happy I'll be in San Francisco. It's been a while since I've been out there. I want to thank all of you for listening to the show. Thank you for recommending it to friends of people who like wrestling. Thanks to Scott Demore for coming on. Thanks to Gabe Glad, Jeff and Stu Stone. Thanks to Kid Russell, Matt Jenkins on the music, Dave Miller with some tech. HighSpots.com are a wonderful sponsor. They have an amazing VOD service. You can watch all those PWGs on there. You can watch all those $5 wrestlings on there. You can also get AMA knee pads, gear, masks, wrestling rings. All things wrestling, they got it. OneHourTees.com. They help run ProWrestlingTees.com, who also now ship ProWrestlingCrate.com. But ProWrestlingTees.com is a great way to support your favorite independent wrestler. Also, TweakedAudio.com/Colt, the earbuds that I use every single day. 30% off and free shipping just because you listen to this show. And it was a fun show this week. Glad you could hang out with me for an hour. We had a good time, right? We sure did. Hey, a little note, if you live in Chicago, Marty DeRosa and I are going to be doing our second annual Night Before Thanksgiving comedy show. This year, it's at North Bar. We've never done the same show in the same venue. I think we've done every single venue around Chicago. We're going to do it at North Bar. Tickets are not available yet. I'll let you know all the information. We'll get it done. Going to be a great time. Come celebrate not wanting to be around your parents and family with us the night before Thanksgiving. All right, I'm going to get out of here, guys. Thank you very much for listening. This has been The Art of Wrestling. For Colt Cabana, I'm Colt Cabana. Thanks.